Lakuta Sicha is Chelek Yud Aleph, Sicha Tetzave Aleph. Very Gishmaka Sicha. It starts out as a Rashi Sicha. As explaining a Rashi, asking a bunch of questions, presenting a brand new approach to answer all of the questions. Then there is an inyan in Halacha, and then there is an inyan in Chassidus. So we get a little bit of everything, and it's all really on one word. One very short word. In the beginning of this week's parsha, the word zach or zoch. The parsha begins with a mitzvah of hadlakas neiros, or the mitzvah of bringing the shemen to Moshe Rabbeinu, and the pasuk says, "V'ata Tetzave b'nei Yisrael." You, Moshe Rabbeinu, should command the Yidden, "V'yikru elecha shemen zayizach." They should bring to you pure olive oil, clean olive oil, kasis, which is crushed, lamoir, for the menorah, lahalis ner tamid, to be able to light the ner tamid, the ner, every day. So Rashi, b'tchilas parsha seinu maitek Rashi is hateves v'ata Tetzave zoch. The beginning of the parsha, the very first Rashi in the parsha, Rashi quotes the words from the pasuk v'ata Tetzave zoch, umefarish, and translates, explains. What does it mean? It means b'li shmarim, without sediments. K'moshe sheninu b'menachos, and he brings a raya from Menachos, from the Gemishna in Menachos, where it says megargerei b'roish hazayis v'chulu. You pick the olives from the top of the olive tree, etc. Over there in the Mishnah says that that you would go to the top of the tree and pick the olives, and then you would crush the olives, put them into a basket, a wicker basket that has cracks between the strips, and then the oil would drip out because the olive was crushed. The oil would drip out from the basket into the keli that was underneath it, the vessel that was underneath it, and that was your olive oil that was used for the menorah. Since the olives themselves, and therefore the peels and the sediments, whatever is not actually oil, would remain in the basket, all you have is the oil that drips out. So clearly, this oil does not have shmarim, does not have sediments, and this is Rashi's proof that the oil that zoch was b'li shmarim, the oil was zoch without any sediments. This is what Rashi says. So Rashi says zoch means without sediments, and he brings a raya from the Gemara, from the Mishnah in Menachos. So the Sikha is now going to ask 7 questions on this Rashi. Tiny little Rashi, little word. The first question is, what is the chiddush of Rashi? Clearly, zach means clean or pure, and pure means nothing in it, including no sediments. So what is Rashi's chiddush? What is Rashi coming to tell us? Aleph. From the fact that Rashi does not translate the word zoch, saying that it means clean or something similar to that, but he explains the idea that it means b'li shmarim, that it means without sediments. Muchach, this implies the that the meaning of the word zach, the translation of the word zach, is known, and therefore is no reason for Rashi to tell it to us. But it needs explanation. Zach v'naki mima. What is it clean from or clean of? So therefore Rashi explains that it means to exclude the sediments. Therefore, now there comes the question, it's not understood, Maika Mashbalon, what's it coming to tell us? What's the chiddush? The naki hainu mitaruv is called davar, that naki, clean, means that there's nothing, no outside substance mixed in, including sediments. So if we know that zach means clean, then that means that nothing is mixed in. Also, not shmarim mixed in. So then what's Rashi telling us? Question Beis. The Kaman Parshas Kisisa Nemar Leveina Zakov Lepirish Rashi Zakom Ima. In Parshas Kisisa, it says Leveina Zaka by the Keteris. One of the 11 Samamonim was called Leveina Zaka, and it does not say Zaka from what? So if Zach needs an explanation over here, why does Zach not need an explanation there? And if it doesn't need an explanation over there, why does it need an explanation over here? Gimel, third question. Rashi brings a proof from the Gemara in Menachos. Similar to question Aleph, where we said, what's the chiddush? In question Gimel, we're asking, if it's not a chiddush, why do we need a raya? Why do we need a proof that Naki means, that Zach means Bali Shmarim. The whole thing is not necessary in the first place, seemingly. And if it is necessary, for some reason, it's obvious. Why do I need a Raya? Dalit. The fourth question, if we're going to discuss a Raya, and we do need a Raya, the Raya from Menachos is questionable. Why? Ein darke shal Rashi lahavi Rayas lepirushay, bipshute shal mikra midinim shebechelek halacha shebeteira. It is not the custom of Rashi to bring proofs in pshute shal mikra, in the basic understanding of the pasuk, from a din, from the dinim that are part of the halacha and Teira. Similar to the Rashi, the following Rashi to this one, on the word kasis, where Rashi says azeisim or yukaisish, that the zeisim were crushed in a crusher and then put into the basket. Then there was 3 harvests of olives, and there were 3 steps in each olive making process. The first was where it was crushed and it was placed into the basket. The second one, it was ground up. So Rashi continues, V'Hashem and Hasheni pasul l'menorah, the second shemen that's ground up and would have sediments mixed in. So it's pasul for the menorah, the kosher l'menachos, but it's kosher for the mincha. The mincha also had to have shemen in it. So the shemen, the second shemen that was ground up in the rechaim, in the mill, is kosher from menachos. Shenemar kasis lamoer. As it says in the pasuk, our pasuk is kasis lamoer. The loy kasis lamenachos. So we learn from this that kasis is for the moer. Only the shemen that was used for the moer, for the menorah, for the luminary had to be kasis. But for the menachos, it didn't need to be kasis. So even if it was tachun, if it was ground, it's also kosher. So what we see is, what's the raya that Rashi brings from the pasuk, kasis lamoyer. It didn't bring the makir from Gemara, because Rashi brings a raya in psute shel mikra from psukim, or from other places, but not from halacha. This brings up the question in our case, even if you were to tell me that a raya is necessary to prove that shemen needs to be without shmarim, what is the raya in psute shel mikra from something that is learned in a Mishnah or in the Gemara, which is a halacha with regards to how to make the oil? So, in other words, why is Rashi, or how is Rashi bringing a raya to psute shel mikra from something that is halacha brought in the Gemara? The next question hey, is going to be that seemingly when Rashi brought us the raya, he sort of hinted to it, but didn't even explicitly tell us what the raya is. In other words, Rashi brings the words megargere b'reish hazayis, that you pick the olives from the top of the olive tree. What's the real raya that the olives was bali shmarim? Was from the fact that it was crushed and not ground, from the fact that it was put into a basket, so the actual olives could not enter into the place where the oil was, and the oil dripped out. So the real raya is from v'koitesh b'machteshes, which is what the Mishnah says further, that it was crushed. Nevertheless, Rashi says v'chulu, megargir b'reish hazayis v'chulu. So the question is, why does Rashi bring the beginning, which isn't really a raya to what he's saying, the beginning of the Mishnah, and not the actual part of the Mishnah that is a more clear raya to what he's trying to say inside? Rashi copies over quotes from the Mishnah Menachos the words megargir b'reish hazayis v'chulu. The raya that it's bali shmarim is not really from the fact of where the olive comes from, but from the continuation of that Mishnah, where it says that you crush it and you put it into the basket. As Rashi himself brings in the following Dibra Maschil, Kosis, Hazeisim or Yukaisis B'machteshas. Kosis means that the olives were crushed in a crusher. So there shouldn't be sediments there. Avol Rashi, Maitik Befeiros, what Rashi brings down explicitly are the words that are not the main raya to his Pirush. And the words that are the raya to Rashi's pirush are just hinted in a v'chulu. V'chulu is like etc. It's hinted in the etc. It's hinted in the fact that there's more words to it to this, but it's not. So why can't Rashi bring the words explicitly? Question Vav. Lama maybe Rashi b'pirusha gam amana makim. Why does Rashi actually bring the reference, the source? That it was learned in Menachos, like we've learned in the past, that Rashi, if Rashi brings the makir, there's an extra message, an extra teaching that Rashi is trying to imply with the makir, with the source of where this came from. So what is Rashi teaching us with the mentioning the Gemara in Menachos? This is especially difficult. In Parashas Emer, where it speaks also over there in Parashas Emer about the Shemen Zayizach. Rashi says there are 3 types of oils that come out of the olive. The first is called Zach. Vehein mifurashin b'menachos u'b'teras kehanim. These 3 oils are explained in Menachos and in Teras Kehanim. So Rashi in Emer brings 2 sources, Menachos and Teras Kehanim. So over here, if Rashi is going to bring the source, he should bring both. And if Rashi is not bringing both, why does Rashi bring any at all? Question Zayin, the 7th and final question. Rashi maitik menakasuv gama teves v'ata tetzave. A very interesting phenomenon. Rashi brings the dibra maschil v'ata tetzave zach. So the words of Pasuk v'ata tetzave is b'nei Yisrael v'yikcho elecha shemen zayis zach. So Rashi brings the words v'ata tetzave, period. Then skips over the first few words, the next few words in the pasuk, and then mentions the word zach. Rashi only explains the word zach, does not explain the words v'ata tetzave. So therefore we must come to the conclusion. So Rashi ma'atikon that Rashi is bringing the words v'ata tetzave because in the words of v'ata tetzave is part of his proof that zach means b'li shmarim, without sediments. So we have to understand in one of 2 ways. Aleph, Maya, Ichacha, Min HaTeves, V'at Tetzave, Sha'Hashem, and Tzarech Li is B'li Shmarim. What is the proof from the words V'at Tetzave that the oil has to be without sediments? Beis Uli Idach, conversely, Im Yesh Ichacha Min HaKosuf, Ma Meisif Rashi, Baraya V'Mesechta Menachos. And if V'at Tetzave is the Raya, somehow, then what is Rashi adding on from Masechta Menachos? Why does Rashi bring another raya from Masechta Menachos if we already have the raya from the pasuk V'ata Tetzave? So Eis Beis is going to bring the biur, the explanation. And basically, we're going to say that the chiddush of Rashi is not that zach means clean without sediments, but the discussion here is when the pasuk says zach, what is it referring to? Is zach referring to the oil or the olive? Does the oil have to be pure and clean, or does the olive have to be pure and clean and of a good quality? And the question is, am I going to learn how it's mashma, how the pasuk sounds al pi pashtus, or do I have to learn it differently? Because of nemar shemen zayis zoch kosis lamoyer. The pasuk says olives, oil from olives, pure, crushed for the menorah, for the luminary. V'hine tevas kosis museves al tevas zayis. The word kosis follows the word zayis. Follows, meaning it's referring to the word zayis. Hainu shazayis tzarech li is kosis. That the olive has to be crushed. There's no other way to touch kosis. Well, lefizeh kosher lefarish the teva zach ha'amura bein zayis lekosis museves al teva shemen amura lifnezeh. So it's very hard to say that the zach that goes in the middle between zayis and kosis is referring to the shemen. Because it said zayis, zach, kosis. The kosis goes to the zayis. It would be mashma that also the zach goes to the zayis. That should be zayis, zach, a good zayis, kosis that's crushed. If you wanted to say that zoch goes on the shemen, shemen zayis kosis zoch, the oil that's from a crushed olive that's pure. Hainu shemen tzarich is olive shel zayis kosis. Number one, it has to be from a crushed olive. Zayis kotos b'machteshes, olives that were crushed in a crusher. And beizach. And the second thing about the oil is that it has to be pure or clean. But since the pasuk doesn't say that, it says shemen zayis zoch kosis, implies that the zoch goes on the zayis. So just in case it wasn't clear, the pasuk says shemen zayis zoch kosis lamoir. Kosis clearly is referring to the zayis. So zayis goes to kosis. Zoch is smack in the middle. So it's very hard to learn it any other way other than that zoch is going also on the zayis, and that's why it's in the middle between the word zayis and kosis. The other way to have written it would have been shemen zayis kosis zoch. Then we could say zoch goes on the shemen. Elo shebedoichek yesh nefarish the betchila kosva tehirat noim shebeshemen sheyiyah olive shel zayis beizach v'achar kach mefareshes ha'emtzoi shebechdei sheyiyah shemen zach v'yidei sheyiyah zayis kosis. Bedoichek, in other words, to say it's difficult, but we can explain it. That first the Torah is writing about the oil. That number one, it should be from an olive, and number two, it should be pure. Shemen zayis zach. And then it tells us the vehicle. How do I make the zayis to be zach? Through kosis, through crushing it. But that is a doichek, that is not an easy, simple way of understanding the pasuk. So therefore, if we go back to the simpler way of understanding the pasuk, had the pasuk wanted to say that the zoch goes on the shemen, it would have said shemen zayis kosis zoch. From the fact that the word zoch is between zayis and kosis, is mashma that al pi pashtos haksuvim. According to the simple understanding of the pasuk, the zoch goes on the zayis, and the zayis has to be a quality olive. And this is what he says weiter. Therefore, we have to come to the understanding, at least at this point in time, as the Even Ezra actually explains, the zach koyal zayis, that zach is also just like kosis is going on the zayis, also zach is going on the zayis on the olive. V'kosis. The olive has to be two things. Number one, it has to be pure, meaning to say it has to be of a good quality, and also it has to be crushed. What does it mean it has to be good quality? Shetzarech likach hagargarim she'ein ben ipush. You have to take the olives that are not spoiled, are not moldy or spoiled, or the olives that are not yet munched on or bitten on by animals or birds. And this is how you make oil that's fit for a king. So that's what the Even Ezra teaches, and that's how I would have taught based on the pastos haksuvim from the way the word zach is positioned between zayis and kosis. And this is what Rashi is coming to eliminate by saying the words that the zach means without sediments. He's not coming to explain the word zach, which, as we mentioned earlier, is self-understood. To say that the word zach is going on the shemen and not on the zayis. Despite the hardship, the difficulty in this pirush, because it says shemen zayis zach kosis and not shemen zayis kosis zach. Nevertheless, the Rashi holds that zach goes on the shemen. And that's why Rashi says to say b'lishmarim, not to explain to me what zach means, because that I could have figured out on my own, but to tell me that we're talking about the purity of the oil, the shlilas taruv shmarim l'titachan l'benegel l'shemen, to exclude the mixture of sediments is only possible by the oil. And obviously not in regards to the olive. In other words, regardless of what quality the olive is, there could still be or not be sediments in the oil. If you say without sediments, it means that you're talking about the quality of the oil. And Rashi wants to disagree with the Even Ezra or with the Pashtus Aksuvim and tell us that when it says zach, it means that the oil has to be zach, it has to be pure and clean. And this answers question 1 of what's the chiddush of Rashi. Why Rashi has to tell it to us? Because now there's a big chiddush that Rashi is coming to disagree, so to speak, with the Even Ezra and with the Pashtus Aksuvim. It also answers question Beis. Why by Levena Zaka there's no beer? Because Zaka by itself doesn't need a beer. Zaka is something that's moving me'atzma. Everyone knows what Zach means. Only over here, where there's another way to understand it that Rashi wants to eliminate, does he need to explain what Zach means. But over there, that there's no other way to understand it, there's no reason for Rashi to explain it. Now, what's Taka Rashi's proof? If the Pashtus Aksuvim is mashma, that Zach goes on the Zayis, where does Rashi get it from that the Zach is going on the Shemen? This is what he brings from Ois Gimel. And to prove that Zach goes on the oil and not on the olive, even though we said earlier it's a doichak, it's difficult to explain it this way. This is why Rashi brings in his Dibur HaMaschil from the Pasuk the words V'ata Tetzave V'abiur Hatzivu Deviato Tetzave Geimar. This commandment that you should command the Yidden and they should bring to you oil. This was told to Moshe Rabbeinu when the Yidden were in the desert. A place that there are no olive trees growing in the desert. Therefore we must say that they lit the menorah with oil that they brought with them from Mitzrayim. It's impossible to say that they brought olives with them and then they crushed them for 40 years in the Midbar. For 39 years in the Midbar, they were crushing olives. They would have spoiled. The olives are not going to last for a very long time. So clearly they didn't take olives with them for the sake of making oil out of it. So what did they light the menorah with? They lit the menorah with oil that they brought with them from Mitzrayim. And this is a proof. And the Rebbe brings in the other 13 to sort of as a proof to the fact that they used oil that they brought with them from Mitzrayim, because it says in the pasuk, this is the truma that you should take from them, and one of those things is Shemen Lamoyer. Later it says the Nesiim brought the Shemen Lamoyer. Heviu doesn't say asu, doesn't say they made it, doesn't say they prepared it, it says they brought it, implying that the only thing that they did to it was bring it because they already had it from Mitzrayim. And this is the proof that we're not explaining here that the zayis of the olive is zach, but we're talking about the shemen being zach. If you're looking at oil, ready-made oil that came from Mitzrayim, you can't tell what kind of olives it was made from. If it was made from olives that had been eaten a little bit by the birds or by the animals, or even if the olives were a little rotten, you can't see that in the oil. So if we're dealing with oil that, if it's v'ata tetzave in the midbar, and therefore we're dealing with oil that's in the midbar, clearly we can't be talking about the zayis, because there's no way to know which oil is coming from which zayis. But if you say that shemen if zach means the shemen, the oil, which means without sediments, that you could see, you look at it, you see if it has sediments or not. So that we're talking about and that's where Rashi brings the words v'ata tetzave. The commandment for making oil, which is discussed in this parsha. And since the Eibishter commanded Moshe that he should command the Yidden in the Midbar to take Shem and Zayizach, so therefore we must say that we're talking about oil that's zach, because that's the only thing that they were able to procure in the Midbar. There was no way to get oil from good zaysim, because we have no idea where the shemen came from. And this answers the first part of question Zayin, which was, why does Rashi bring the words V'ata Tetzave? What proof do you have from the words V'ata Tetzave that we're talking about B'li Shmarim? This answers the question. V'ata Tetzave is telling us that the oil came, that the commandment came in the Midbar. And if the commandment came in the Midbar, clearly we're talking about something that you could decipher, something that you could figure out in the Midbar. And the only thing you can know about the oil is whether it has Shmarim or not. You cannot know about the oil if it has, from which zayis it came from. And we're going to answer something, we're going to add a detail to this. The Talmud Memulach is here once again, the seasoned student, the one who takes things a step further, and he's going to say, it's better to be able to explain the pasuk according to its simple understanding, its basic understanding. The teva zoch koy ala zayis, that the word zoch is referring to the zayis. The question that we have on this, that it says v'ata tetzave. V'ata tetzave means right away. V'ata tetzave means that it was in the midbar, and in the midbar there's no way to know what kind of oil we're talking about. Yes, the taretz, that we have an answer to that. At least not an easy answer, but at least an answer. The prat hachiyuv zayizach eino yelok shevei Eretz Yisrael. That the detail of zach was not applicable in the midbar because it was impossible. It was applicable when they came to Eretz Yisrael. Eretz Yisrael is Eretz Zeis Shemen. It's a land that is full of olive trees. And over there they would be able to get good olives. And that's why the Eibusha says that when you get to Eretz Yisrael and you're able to procure olives, good olives, then you should make Shem and Zayizach, oil from good olives. And in the Midbar where there's no olives at all, ein mokoim litnai sheyiyah Zayizach hidliku Shem and Zayistam. And over there's no way, you can't force them to get good olives, so they use regular olives, meaning to say it was still good oil. In other words, it was still a special oil because it was B'li Shmarim, but it wasn't the real Shemen Zayizach without using good zaysim, because they were in the middle, they had no choice. But in Eretz Yisrael, that's when they're going to use the real Shemen Zayizach. So the Talmud Mulach is going to ask a question, rather than teaching the pasuk in a fetched way, that the Zach goes on the Shemen because of the words V'ata Tetzave. Let's say that teach the pasuk with Pashtus that Zach goes on the Zayis, and it's just that it wasn't applicable in the Midbar. So Gam Zemavur B'Zeh Rashi Teves V'ata Tetzave. So the Rebbe says that this is also being answered with the words V'ata Tetzave. Not only are we answering B'chlal, that we know the emphasis is on the oil because this was in the Midbar and they didn't have olives, but you can't even say that we're talking about later, because as soon as you see the words V'ata Tetzave, Shemerumers B'Zeh Ein Sav Elo Miyad U'Ledeiros. In the word Tetzave, we have a limud in the beginning of Parashas Tzav, where Rashi brings that the word Tzav means miyad u'ledeiros. It means that it's a commandment for right away and for the future generations. So that means umuchach shetzivri zachol miyad gam b'yesim hamidbar. So from the fact that it says V'ata Tetzave and not another terminology of commandment or telling the Yidden what to do, the fact that it says V'ata Tetzave is mashma that it's miyad, even in the Midbar. Umekivan, as we go, so then we go back to where we came from. Mekivan sheyav shalema sheyadu la'avchin et Hashem enu shozeisim zakim kanal. Since it's impossible to know which oil is coming from good olives, leimar shezach koi al Hashem, therefore we must say that the zach refers to the shemen. So in other words, so basically, Rashi's explanation to us is that zach means belishmarim. In other words, he wants to tell us that the word zach in the pasuk is talking about the shemen, that the oil has to be of good quality, not the olives have to be of good quality. And his proof is from the words v'yata tetzave, because the Eibishter was telling Moshe to command this to the Yidden in the midbar, and dafke for the time they're in the midbar miyad uladeiris, and for later on as well. And since in the midbar there was no way to get oil that which you could tell which olives it came from, clearly the only way to explain shemen zai zoch is that the zoch goes on the shemen. Very good. We still have a question. The next question is going to be, maybe the Yidden in Mitzrayim made olive oil from good olives, just like they brought oil with them, which means that they knew they're going to need oil for the Beis Hamikdash, for the Mishkan. Maybe they also knew that they need oil from zeisim zakim, from good zeisim, from good olives. And maybe it's possible that the oil that they had in the midbar was oil that was made in Mitzrayim from good olives. So we still do not have a complete proof. We could still try to sort of explain it, even though it's not smooth, but at least explain it in some sort of way. Just like we must say that the Yidden knew that they're going to be commanded to prepare oil for the menorah. In general, and therefore they took from Mitzrayim oil, even though the pasuk says that they didn't even take food for the way, so they were rushing. Nevertheless, they made time to take oil, because they must have known how important the oil would be. Maybe, let's say that they also knew that they need to have oil from good olives. And therefore, when they went out of Mitzrayim, they took oil that was made from olives that were not eaten or rotten. So in other words, maybe it's still possible, even in the midbar, to have zeisim, to have shemen zai zach, and the zach means from the olives. In Hara 20, the Rebbe points out that in Rashi, in our parasha, Rashi says that Yaakov Avinu saw beruach hakodesh that they're going to need wood, so he planted cedar trees, and then he told his sons that when they leave Mitzrayim, they should take with them the trees, the wood, the lumber, so to be able to have asay shittim to build the Mishkan. And then from the Rashi is master, that's really the only thing that they knew about in advance. So that might answer this question. But then again, in the Hara, he brings from the Gemara in Yuma that some of the things the Yidden bought from passing Gentile merchants, traveling merchants that were traveling through the Midbar as well, and they were able to buy certain things from them. So it's possible that they bought olives from them as well. So in other words, maybe there's still a way to find, even if it's not so glottic, it's not so smooth, maybe there's a way to explain that they did make oil from good olives in the midbar. Either that they brought it with them from Mitzrayim ready-made, or that they picked up some olives from the merchants along the way. So maybe we could still fit it in. And that's why Rashi doesn't suffice with V'yata Tetzave. That was what we said in the question Zayin, the second detail. We asked, well, if we have a raya from That's the tzava. Why do we need a raya from menachos? We still have because we still have a question. Even with the raya from tetzave, we still have a question. Maybe there was still a way that they were able to get shemen zayis from good zaysim in the midbar, and therefore Rashi brings another raya from the Gemara in menachos, where it says over there the megargere b'reisha zayis. The Pirush Even Ezra the zayis sarach liyizach, and we're going to explain how it's a raya. According to the Even Ezra, that the olive has to be zach. We're talking about the olive has to be a good quality olive. So gargarim, which means gargarim shein ben ipush, eishel nechla miktsasam, olives that have no mold on them. No, it's not spoiled, and we're not eaten. Bozeh ein adifus lag zeisim agdelim b'reishal ilan. There's no preference to the olives that are growing on the top of the tree. With regards to compared to any other olives. The on the top of the tree, there's birds that are going to peck at the zaysim, at the olives. If we're trying to get good olives, untouched, fresh olives, it would be preferable to take the olives that grow in the middle of the tree, higher than a human hand could reach, so it wasn't touched by people, and lower than the top of the tree, where the birds are. So if our goal was to get good olives, then we would not need to go to the top of the tree. And since it says in Menachos that you will pick the olives from the top of the olive tree, this is a proof to the that according to the Gemara Zach koyal shemen v'lei al zayis, that the zach is referring to the oil and not to the olive. And therefore you go to the top of the tree to collect it, to pick the olive. The olive, that's the oil that comes out of the olives on the top of the tree. They are very ripe, the olives are very ripe, and therefore it's very easy to crush the olive and get the oil out without the shmarim. And clearly it doesn't matter to us of what quality the olives are, because we're picking it from the top of the tree where the birds are. Maybe if the sun shines on them, they dry out quicker, or it begins to mold. I don't know about that detail, but in general, the fact that we're going to the top of the tree means we're not going for the best looking olives, we're going for the olives that give the best oil. Now we've answered question 3. Question Gimel, which was why does Rashi have to bring a raya from Menachos? There's no need for a raya at all. We do need a raya from Menachos, because Rashi is trying to bring a raya to the fact that we're using zach to mean zach of the shemen, and we still wanted to kvetch ein. We still wanted to squeeze. Another word than squeeze, really. We wanted to push this pshat that shemen means, that zach means shemen, so therefore we need to bring, zach means on the zaysim, therefore we need this raya from the Gemara Menachos. It also answers question 5 of why Rashi quotes the words megarger b'reisha zayis and not the words ketesh m'achteshes, because here the real raya is from the words b'reisha zayis. The real raya that Rashi is bringing is from the fact that we're picking the olives from the top of the tree. That proves that we're going for the olives that give the best oil and not for the olives that look the best. Now, we also asked the question, why does Rashi say b'menachos? So here he says something very, very beautiful. Rashi b'menachos. Lishlel teras kayanim. Rashi brings the source in Menachos to eliminate, to exclude the source of teras kayanim. See, in teras kayanim, it brings the same idea about the zayis, but the way it's written there is megargere b'reisha zayis. You pick it from the top of the tree, and you grind it in a mill. And he brings it once and twice, and later on, he brings also the day of Rabbi Yehuda that you crush it. So now, in order for us to bring a raya that the oil did not have shmarim, you can't say that it was ground up in a mill, because when you grind the olive, then the peels and the sediments get mixed in. So in order to exclude the pshat, the deya, the opinion that it was ground up in a mill, Rashi focuses on the Gemara Menachos, which in the Mishnah in Menachos, it only brings the kaitesh that it was crushed and does not bring the rechayim. So this continues to prove Rashi's point that that zach means beli shmarim. Kisham uva gam adei Tanakama shteichne berechayim. In Teras Kenim is brother Dei Tanakama that it's ground up in a mill. Menachos nimtza dei zurak beGemara. Menachos, this day is in the Gemara, not in the Mishnah. The Rashi kan mamshach ve'einu teichne berechayim. Rashi here is trying to emphasize that we're not grinding it in the mill, and therefore Rashi mentions Menachos, where the emphasis there is on the fact that it is crushed and not ground. And he explains a little bit more why in Emor, in the Rashi and Parshas Emor, he does bring Menachos and Teras Kehanim. And he says like this: Here we're talking about in story style. We're telling the story about the building of the Mishkan. And after that comes the parsha in Parshas Tzav about, and then Shmini, about how the Mishkan was dedicated. This whole dedication, the building of the Mishkan, and the dedication of the Mishkan was with great grandiose, ubashirus, and with wealth. The whole time that they were in the Midbar, they were in a wealthy state. So therefore, since they were doing things in a grand way and in a wealthy way, clearly they were using the best possible oil, which is the oil which is bli shmarim. And they were doing it by crushing it and taking out that first bit of oil that comes after the crushing, and now in the second stage, which is after the grinding. But in Parshas Emor, he's not telling a story. He's not focusing on exactly how it was. Parshas Emor, the emphasis is the halachas, the dinim of what has to be done. Therefore, here Rashi is talking about how it was in the Midbar, in actuality, that it was beli shmarim. With Parshas Emor, al pidin. And at Parshas Emor, Rashi is talking al pidin. He's talking about what the dinim are, what the halachas are with regards to preparing the oil. And therefore Rashi has to mention Teras Kehanim as well, because if we're talking halacha, you have to bring the various sources that discuss the halachas of this preparation. And therefore Rashi also mentions the fact that there was 3 oils, because Rashi is not discussing the actual story, how it happened. Rashi is introducing the whole process of making olive oil for the menorah according to halacha. And therefore Rashi brings the process that there's 3 types of oils. Rashi brings the Teras Kehanim because there was a day that it was crushed, there was a day that it was ground. Over there Rashi is more intent on giving us as many details as possible, because he's bringing in the halachas. In our Rashi is telling us what was that it was beli shmarim, because they were wealthy and they were able to use the best possible oil, and B, we're talking about the ultimate understanding of zach is that zach is going on the shemen, but the shemen has to be the best possible shemen, meaning beli shmarim. Now, the only question that went unanswered so far is question Dalet, which was why does Rashi bring a raya, or how does Rashi bring a raya in halacha, in pshutei shel mikra from halacha? So that gets answered in the other 21. In the other 21, he makes 2 points. Number one, even though we're referring to the Gemara, but we're not referring to the Chelek halacha in the Gemara. We're referring into how the Gemara understands the pasuk. So the Gemara there is talking about how to understand the pasuk, and therefore Rashi could use that as a raya to how to understand the pasuk as well. More importantly, or not, or more importantly, b'frat, especially since the whole Gemara in Menachos is only an extra raya to the Tetzave to answer the doichak that we wanted to bring. So therefore, it doesn't matter so much that we're learning, even if we are learning a raya from Gemara, from halacha, it's not such a big deal, because our main raya is from the Tetzave, which is in pshutei shel mikra. Now in Eis Vav, we're going to go something that we're going to apply this machlekes Rashi and Even Ezra to a inyan in halacha, a relevance from this machlekes to inyan in halacha. Pasuk Rambam, the Rambam paskins. Nemer b'teira v'hevel chulu u'mechel ben chulu. Teira says that Hevel brought from the best of his animals, and the Eibishter, it says the Yishal Hevel, the Eibishter turned to Hevel. The Eibishter accepted Hevel's gift. And the Rambam learns from this, called Davar Shul Hashem Akel Atev, everything that's for the Eibishter, Sheyiyim in Anoah V'Atev, it should be beautiful and it should be good. In Bana Beis Tefillah, Yanami Beis Yeshivasa, if he builds a shul, it should be nicer than his house that he dwells in. Ha'achil Raiv, if he's feeding a poor person, he should give him the best kind of food. Kisa Adam, if he's giving a person who doesn't have clothing, should be from the best possible clothing. Hiktish Davar, if he's giving something to Hektish, if he's dedicating something to the Beis HaMikdash, it should be from the best possible things, the best possible quality. V'cheinu Eimer, as the pasuk says, Kol Chelev La'avaya, Kol Chelev, the fat, the best of the best, should go to the Eibishter. So we have to clarify. Does this obligation of giving the best to Hashem apply even when I'm preparing the thing that I'm ultimately going to give to the Eibishter? Dugma, for example. Am I obligated to take the best possible wool if I am sewing a garment for a poor person, which is basically a gift that I'm giving to Hashem? Do I have to use in the preparation of the beged, of the making of the beged, the best possible tzemer, the best possible wool? It could be seen in two ways. It's two levels of logic here. That the chiyuv kachel of Hashem is when you're giving it, then it's becoming Hashem's, then it's la Hashem, then it's becoming Hashem's, and therefore you have to give the best, the most beautiful that you have. Beis chiyuv zechol gam kedem anasina. This obligation applies even before you're giving it. Take it from miyad shemachli b'daite shesof sof yir la Hashem. As soon as he decides that ultimately this is going to belong to Hashem, gam be'eis achanas vasiyas adovar l'shem akel atov. Even when you're preparing it, l'shem, for the sake of, meaning to say even before it's actually being given to Hashem, but it's for the sake of Hashem. You have to already choose from the best and from the most beautiful. And within this, we can also see this in two ways. One, rakish and nikir ilu beis hanesina, that it only matters if you could actually see the difference, the advantage, the quality when you're giving it. Even if you can't tell when you're giving it which one, that the quality that the material it was made with was the best possible material, still you have to make it from the best material, because you're doing it for the sake of Hashem. So the question is, how do I look at it? Do I say that what matters is when I give it, or that what matters is when even when I'm preparing it? So we have this question. We're going to answer this question based on the two approaches of the Even Ezra and Rashi. According to the Even Ezra, that zach goes on the olive. means that we could learn from this din that you have to use the best olives. Even when you are preparing, making something for the Eibishter for the sake of the Keilatev of the Eibishter, it has to be from the best. The Torah insisted that the olives which you are crushing for the sake of making oil for the menorah, you should be pure and the best of best quality. This teaches us that this obligation begins even from the preparation, when even before you've made the oil. Even if you won't see the advantage of it, the quality of it, when you're giving it to Hashem, because when you give the oil to Hashem, you can't see what kind of olives this was made from. Nevertheless, the Ibn Ezra holds that you have to use good olives, implying that when you're preparing something for Hashem, it has to be from the best possible materials. That would be the Ibn Ezra's approach. But according to Rashi, that Zoch goes on the oil. We see that Torah does not insist on the preparation time, that it should be from the best quality. The most important part is when you're giving it to Hashem, when you're actually using the oil, it has to be from the best. So sometimes we reach high. We want to that even the preparation should be, even when we're preparing ourselves, it should be from the best possible material. Comes Rashi and says, no, the most important thing is what happens at the end. When you're handing this over to Hashem, when you're doing the mitzvah with it, it should be of the best possible material. But how you got there, what the steps were before you got there, what the process was getting there, that doesn't matter as much. That's how we would understand Rashi. In order 25, he brings that in the case that when you're giving it to Hashem, it would ultimately be better because the preparation was done with better material. We're still not clear if Rashi would demand of us that we should use better material because then the actual gift is on a higher level, or we would not focus on that because as long as we're giving something beautiful to Hashem at the time of the gift, that is still considered kechelev laHashem. It's not, and the ha'ara does not come to a conclusion on that. Okay. And now from Zayin, with Zayin, we're going to go to the Chassidus. Also going to have two approaches, the approach of Rashi and the approach of the Ibn Ezra. And just to give a brief introduction, there's two ways of looking at the Zayis. The Zayis is bitter. Bitterness is compared to darkness. Bitterness meaning something that we don't like. We don't like something that's bitter. So bitterness is going to be compared to darkness. There's two ways of looking at the Zayis, and there's two ways of looking at darkness. One way of looking at the Zayis, which is the basic approach, is that the Zayis is lower than the Shemen. The Shemen is the important thing, and the Zayis is only the vessel that holds the Shemen. And therefore, in order to get to the Shemen, we have to crush the Zayis to get to the Shemen. And that's why we call the Zayis bitter, because it's in the way of the Shemen. It's getting in the way of us getting to what we actually want, which is the oil. The other way of looking at the Zayis is that the Zayis is higher than the Shemen. It's the source of the Shemen. It's where the Shemen comes from. And in Chassidus, we're going to say that if the Shemen is Chachma, then the Zayis is the source of the Chachma, which is such a lofty level that it's beyond revelation. And that's why it's bitter, which, as we said, bitterness is a parallel to darkness. Darkness not as a chisaron, as a lack. Darkness in this case is actually a maila, is actually an advantage, is actually a something unique, because the darkness refers to the fact that it's so light that it's so dark, it's so high that it's beyond revelation. And now let's follow that in the text of the Sikha. Before, Chassidus explains that there's two levels in the Zayis. Aleph, the first level is a Zayis, Lefi Pashtus and Yanai, on a basic level, Shamirirus Shaboy, the bitterness, and we bring the Maimon Azal, Amra Yaina, Yiyum is a Noisai Merurin Kizayis. It says that when Noach sent out the dove from the teva, v'hinei alei zayis taraf b'fiyah. There was a leaf of a olive branch of an olive tree in the mouth of the dove. So the Gemara says, b'fiyah, in the mouth, she was saying something. There was a message. Her message was, I'd rather my food be bitter like an olive, but come from Hashem, than it be sweet like honey and come from a human being. So we see that zayis, even in Chazal, represents bitterness. So what is the bitterness of the olive? It represents the darkness and the bitterness of Sitra Achra, of the klipa, of the forces of negativity. Therefore we find in another Gemara that olives can cause a person to forget 70 years of learning, because forgetfulness comes from the world of klipa. And therefore, since olives represent klipos, olives can cause forgetfulness. So on a basic level, the olive is something less than desirable because it represents klipa. On this level, only by crushing the olive, which is by breaking the sitra achra, that's how you reveal the oil, how you reveal the level of chachma, which is the bittul telekus. How do I reveal the connection that I have to elokus, my bittul to elokus? It's by crushing my olive, meaning by crushing my nefesh abamis. That's one way of looking at it. Beis, zayis lefi pnimius inyane. Zayis on a deeper level. It's not the getting in the way of the oil that has to be crushed, but rather it's hamoker shemimenu nimshach hashemen. It's the source of the oil. V'hainu she'amirirus ha'cheshech shebai it's the darkness of the olive, meaning the bitterness of the olive, represents the highest level. Sfiras HaKesed she'lamaila adayim v'yard v'gili, which is higher than revelation. Chachma and Shemen represents the revelation, because it's the beginning of Seder Ishtalshlus. It's when the levels begin to come in a form that we can access it in some level or another. The olive is the source of that, before revelation becomes possible, and that's why it represents darkness, not as something that is low, but as something that is so high that is beyond a revelation. And that's what it says in Chassidus, that is the meaning of the words Yashas Cheshech Sisra. The Eibishter chooses to conceal himself in darkness. That it's the highest level, it's a high level of Elokus, Shenikra Cheshech, and it's called darkness, Mishum Hayesei Mufshet Umereimam. It is removed and is above, Mikol Geder Shel Eir above Begilui, from any form of light that is being revealed. So on the one hand, we could say zayis on a basic level is that it's a low thing, and that's why it's bitter, and therefore it gets in the way of us reaching our oil, and therefore we have to crush it and break it in order to reach the oil, just like we have to break our nefesh abamis in order to break the sitra achra in order to reach shemen and chachma, which is bittul telekus. And the other way is that the zayis represents on the deepest most level, it represents the source of the oil, it represents the source of the chachma and the shemen, which means, and the reason why it's bitter is because it's such a high level that it's beyond revelation. Now let's apply that to the Pirush of Even Ezra and the Pirush of Rashi. The Even Ezra is more of a mefarish that explains things al pi pashtus on the basic level. And as we just explained, the zayis on a basic level is the darkness, the bitterness of it is because of the involvement of klipa v'sitra achra. And that's why, according to the Even Ezra, you have to be very careful in choosing the olive, in order to be able to extract the oil from it by crushing it. In other words, even the zayis has to be on a level of zach. Only then is it fitting to be transformed into a vessel for godliness. In other words, if a person has to break their nefesh abamis in order to reach a bittul telekus, the nefesh abamis at least has to be on some sort of level in order for it to be transformed to elikus. If the nefesh abamis is rotten to the core, then there's no way, even through ksisha, even through crushing it, to be able to turn it into a bittul telekus. So therefore, the Ibn Ezra is focusing on the olive, because in order to turn an olive into oil, meaning to say, in order to break a nefesh abamis and make it a kli telekus, at least the nefesh abamis has to be on some level to be able to turn it around. But Rashi, even though we say Rashi is mefaresh to the Ben Chamish Lemikra, but Rashi is also the Yeina Shel Teira. Rashi also is going into the deepest, most parts of Teira. And therefore, Rashi's pirush, Rashi illuminates the concepts, at least beremez, as they are on their inner level, on their true level. But the deepest, most concept of the zayis, of the olive, is the fact of Yashas Chesach Sisrei. It is higher than the light that has a connection to the worlds. It is the ultimate holiness and bittul. That's what the zayis is. It's the loftiest level. And therefore, according to Rashi, there's no need to be careful and to choose to specify the best kind of zayis, because the zayis is beyond us. The zayis represents the highest, most levels. We can't pick and choose. We can't affect it. We can't change it. So it doesn't matter what kind of zayis we're dealing with. The only thing we could affect, the only thing we can make a difference in, is the oil that's being extracted from the zayis. Which represents the hamshacha, the drawing it down into chachma. Which is the first time the chachma da'atzilus is the first time the revelation is the beginning of revelation. The yesh l'shayches la'ilus, and is already connected to the order of all the worlds. Therefore, over here you have to be careful, since the olamis are getting involved, and in the olamis there's always a little bit of ra that gets mixed in, sometimes a lot of ra, but even in Atzilus, even in Atzilus is le'yagurcha ra, but there's still not 100%, and in Bria for sure you're dealing with a ma'at Rubai Toiv with Ma'at Ra over there, so there's a little bit of Ra there, and therefore you have to be very careful about the oil, that it shouldn't be influenced by the Ra, and it should stay pure. Zach, it has to be pure. So therefore Rashi says we focus on the oil, because the zayis is beyond us. We have to make sure that the oil, which is the chachma, as it comes down into Seder Ishtashlus, that it remains pure and batel to elokus. So if we look at these two pshatim in the zayis, the Ibn Ezra is focusing on a basic level. The Ibn Ezra is telling us that basically, if you want to overcome the struggles that you have with your guf and nefesh abamis, you have to have iskafia. You have to break your guf. You have to break your taivus in order to be able to extract a bittul telekus. But therefore, you have to, if you're dealing with it, you have to at least be on a level that if we try to break you, or if you try to break yourself, I should say, that there's something to work with. And therefore he focuses on the zayis, which is the guf and nefesh abamis. Rashi is taking us on a totally deeper level, where he's saying, don't focus on the source of it, because that's beyond you. Focus on your chachma. Make sure that your chachma is pure. That even though it's chachma, which is already the beginning of the revelation, nevertheless, being that it's involved in the olamis, it might be influenced by the olamis. Therefore, he says the shemen has to be zach, Meaning to say that you have to work on your chachma, that your chachma should not be influenced by the worlds that it's in, but it should stay pure, which chachma is bittul, so the bittul telekus should remain pure, and that's why and that's what it means, shemen zayis zach.